G'day, guys. I'm DMAC from NBA Fantasy Bible, and along with me is Kayla Fonte. And together we are Between Two Hoops. Kayla, how are you?
I'm doing well. I can't believe it's already the last week. Well, second last week.
Second last week, most leagues, I'm pretty sure that most leagues have finished now, but
Mhm.
those that are still going, stick with us. We do have, well, perhaps one day left in your matchup, and that is the Sunday,
Mhm.
perhaps even next week going into real life playoffs. But yeah, super exciting. Lots to talk about, but let's get into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Well, it has been a massive week in the NBA as per normal, but let's go through our review of week 23 going into week 24, starting with our injury updates. Now, there's a lot to talk about, a lot of questionables, and as we get into the silly season, of course, as we approach real life playoffs, there's going to be a lot of toing and froing, a lot of silly buggery. So, a lot to keep monitoring as we approach the final day, if not the final days of your league. But let's go through the list, shall we, Kayla?
It's a very long list. Yep, let's do it.
Yep, couple of slides, but yeah, bear with us. So starting with Boston, a couple of questionables, of course, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Get used to this over the next few days as well. So I would expect that perhaps not tomorrow, but definitely next week, you will see, if not one, maybe two, if not all of the starters for Boston sit at some stage, and they may even sit a couple of games next week as well. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown at the moment are questionable for Sunday's game, so just keep an eye on that. Of course, you know some of the streams like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. So just keep an eye on that. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, of course, probably will rest likely tomorrow, and just keep an eye out for next week as well. Any further updates on that, Kayla, that you've seen?
Not really. I think it's just kind of a day-to-day thing. We kind of have to monitor what happens. But even to begin with, it was very surprising that Embiid returned. I wasn't expecting that in the regular season.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to give him a platform to launch into the
Yeah.
playoffs, and I know that Philly really want him back, and they definitely need him. He's this absolute superstar. But yeah, he's been a bit of a disappointment for those that really expected a first rounder. You got a first rounder, or
Mhm.
perhaps even a number one pick in terms of per game average, but yeah, in terms of totals, very disappointing. But he's back and he's playing really well. Tobias Harris, their teammate, is also questionable with a knee contusion. So just again, keep an eye on that situation with Philly, and there's a few streaming opportunities there. Giannis for the Milwaukee Bucks is also questionable with a hamstring. Again, these teams that will be in the playoffs will be looking to rest some of their stars if they're pretty happy with their seeding as well. And of course, there's some of the teams that are going to be in playoffs that may be vying for some seeding positioning as well. So perhaps they may not sit some of their stars, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out next week. But Giannis is in that boat right now for Sunday's game. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, similar situation for the Lakers. They have played the back-to-backs, and they've played the last back-to-back, but they are coming off of a game yesterday. So let's see if they do rest coming into Sunday's game. Luka Doncic has a knee injury. He is questionable with a knee injury, but again, they may look to rest him, just look after him as they approach the playoffs. But again, they are vying for seeding positions as well. So perhaps Luka does play, but let's just see how that plays out. Any thoughts on Luka there?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a few more games. Like you said, it's silly season. These are the things that we are going to expect heading into that last week. So it shouldn't come as a surprise, and just be ready with those streaming options.
Absolutely. Tyrese Halliburton's now come up on the questionable tag with back soreness as well. So he, a similar situation again. They're going to look after him. They should be in at least for play-in legibility. And so let's just keep an eye out for their superstar there. But Tyrese Halliburton, of course, if he misses, TJ McConnell continues to be a hold, even if Tyrese does play. I should say CJ McCollum will be a TJ McConnell will be a great fill-in, I should say.
Yes.
Kobe White is another one who is questionable with an ankle sprain.
Yeah, that one's really disappointing. That one hurt me this week, but we'll see, because Desunmu, I think, is healthy, so he should be good to go, and he's been playing these bigger roles anyways, so that's good for his value and for fantasy value. Caruso is also another name to look at, and we also have another streamer who we will mention in the ads list.
Yeah, and Caruso is, I believe, questionable as well for
Yes, he
tomorrow's
is,
game,
yeah.
but just keep an eye out for that one. Kyle Kuzma, he's officially questionable, but I have my doubts as to whether or not he plays not just tomorrow, but for the remainder of the season as well. So again,
Mhm.
keep an eye out for those updates. And Nick Richards, with his foot injury, he should come back, which will then limit Grant Williams. He's been quite a nice streamer for Charlotte, but just keep an eye out for Nick Richards as well. Jalen Williams is day-to-day. I think he is deemed out for tomorrow's game. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he still has his ankle issue as well. So just keep an eye out, as is his teammate, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as pictured there. He's been quite disappointing for those that did need him in the last few games. He has been out as well.
But no surprise here. I mean, they're one of the top seeds, so.
Yeah, they're absolute contenders. So they're looking after their superstars there. So disappointing for fantasy managers that are still playing at this point of the season. Kawhi Leonard is out again with knee soreness, so that elevates the value of course, James Harden, Paul George, even Norman Powell to a lesser extent. Steph Curry will rest tomorrow as well, so just keep an eye out for those streamers. Trae Young, he's been out for quite some time, but I think that he may even come back this week, next week. So just keep an eye out, but perhaps as they have nothing really to play for, maybe they just shut him down. But I've just got a feeling he may play 1 or 2 games next week. Cam Johnson, for me, he is probably a drop, and we'll talk about that shortly, but he will be out for a couple of days, at least one game with his toe issue. He's been up and down, very inconsistent this season, so I don't think you need to hold him, particularly as the way that the schedule is going to shake out as well. And we'll go through that later in the show, but I don't think you need to hold on to Cam Johnson. Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, they are day-to-day, but again, similar to some other teams, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them shut down for the rest of the season. When I say rest of the season, that's a week and a day. Again, nothing to play for. They're the cornerstone of their franchise for the coming years. I don't think they need to risk them for the final few games of the season. What do you think, Kayla?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, especially if you're not going to make the playoffs, they've already been eliminated. It doesn't really make sense to risk further injuries to the star players and instead just start ramping up for next season. So I think it's very likely that they could be shut down.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the streamers shortly. I think there's a few opportunities there, but in terms of the front court, we've seen James Wiseman. He had a few games earlier when Jalen Duren sat out, and Metu as well has looked really good in the last week. So just keep an eye out for that. But yeah, like we said, we'll get into our streamers and our ads shortly. Injuries again. So Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bain, as well as Vince Williams. I have my doubts as to whether or not any of those guys will play again for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I think it's time to drop, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people were holding out hope for Bain in particular, since he did return from a previous injury. But like I said before, it doesn't really make sense to rush these players back and have them play for nothing.
Yeah, I guess one thing that you could hang your hat on, I guess, is the way that the schedule's going to be for next week. There is an opportunity on those high volume days. Perhaps you can hold, because if they do happen to sit, they could just sit on your bench. But again, you're missing out on some streaming opportunity on some of those low volume days as well. So it does depend on how you're tracking throughout the week. But just keep an eye on those things. Tyus Jones, he's been out for quite some time. I just don't think they need to rush him back. The Wizards, again, have nothing to play for. Tyus Jones, I don't think will play the rest of the season. What do you think, Kayla?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I'm honestly surprised that they haven't just ruled him out already.
Yeah, it is surprising that they haven't done that. Same goes for Kyle Kuzma that we spoke about earlier. But yeah, he's still day-to-day at this point in time. It has helped the likes of our boy, Jordan Poole. We won't celebrate that one, but he has looked a lot better while Tyus Jones has been out. Jordan Clarkson, again, I have my doubts as to whether or not he does return. And actually, when we go through the rest of the list, if they're not already deemed out for the season, I would say that they are likely to be deemed out for the rest of the regular season, which, of course, is fantasy season. So Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram, I think obviously they're looking after him going into the playoffs, or real-life playoffs. Again, I don't think that he'll play very much next week. Onyeka Okongwu, different situation. They don't have real-life playoffs, but the Hawks will look after him. I think he's their future starting center, so I don't think they'll need to rush him back. John Collins, again, Utah tanking as well, so they don't need to rush him back. But of course, he's been out, or he has been deemed out for 1 to 2 weeks anyway with back spasm. So in essence, he's done for the season. Karl Anthony Towns, he'll come back for the real-life playoffs, but again, he's not going to help your fantasy playoffs as well. Any further thoughts on Cat?
Yeah, I think he's been a drop for a while now. I know some people are still holding out hope, but you can't be afraid to drop big names, especially when they don't really have a clear return timeline, or even when they're out for multiple weeks. And this is just one of those cases where you just have to let go and drop.
Yeah, name value doesn't count when you're in your playoffs as well. Whether or
Mhm.
not be this week or previous weeks, it really does not matter. Winning championships matters. But yeah, we digress. Anthony Simon's been out. I've got him down as knee/tanking, so I think he's done for the season. Of course, Delano Banton is a must-roster guy.
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant as well has been doubtful for probably about a dozen games in a row. So I doubt he plays the rest of the season, but his hamstring/tanking for the Portland Trailblazers will do him for the rest of the season. Julius Randle, this was a big one. Bit of a huge disappointment for Knicks fans, but still a big disappointment for him personally as well. He's been out for quite some time. It was looking like he was able to return, but he had a bit of a setback. So dislocated shoulder, out for the season. He'll go through shoulder surgery as well. I'm not sure if he's already had the surgery, but he is done for the season, which is a huge disappointment for the Knicks as they're priming themselves for the real life playoffs. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard any more about that, Kayla, but yeah, very disappointing for him.
Yeah, I don't know if he went for the surgery yet. I think the last thing I saw was just that he was forced to undergo season-ending surgery. And
Mhm.
it's just really disappointing because a lot of people held out hope that he was going to return. And like you said, it did seem that way. So it kind of just blindsided us all.
Yeah, big time. Larry Markkinen, again, Utah, he's done for the season. Shoulder issue as well. Kevin Herter, we spoke about him last week, but yeah, dislocated shoulder. He's done for the season. Malik Monk, 3 to 5 weeks. So he's done for the fantasy season, so you don't need to worry about that. But MCL, which is very disappointing, opens up some more minutes for guys like Keon Ellis. But again, he's been quite inconsistent. So he's more of a streamer, watch list type of guy. But yeah, someone to consider if you do need those defensive stocks. Jeremy Sohan, he's also done for the season as his teammate Devin Vassell. So again, Spurs, nothing really to play for. But having said that, it's great to see that Wemby is continuing to dominate, which is great because I have him in one of my playoffs at the moment.
Oh, nice. Rookie of the
Yes.
year.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. He's played the 65 games, so he could probably stop now, a la Jaren Jackson Jr. He's played the 65 on the dot, and wouldn't surprise me if he sits out the rest of the season, but Wemby continues to play, which is awesome. Simone Fontecchio, he's done for the season, I believe. I don't think it's official, but I think he's done. And Marvin Bagley as well. He's done for the Washington Wizards. That's it for injuries. They're some of the high profile ones as well. I don't know if you've got any others, Kayla, but I think we've covered a plethora of those right now.
It feels like this list is ever changing too, but I feel like we got the bulk of them.
I think so too. Next, we've got our ads, holds, and our watch list guys, but our streams as well. So I've mentioned him earlier, but Delano Banton has to be rostered right now. We said that Jeremy Grant's done. Anthony Simons is done. Scoot's still playing, which is fantastic, but Delano Banton has to be added right now if he's not already. All right, Kayla, looks like we have lost you, but that's all right. Hopefully we can get you back. We'll see if you can come back shortly, Kayla. Right, rest of the ads. Jabari Walker again for the Trailblazers. He is dominating right now. So if you need those rebounds, Jabari Walker is your man. And like we said, with some issues with Trailblazers tanking right now, I think Jabari Walker is a fantastic ad and a must roster for me. A couple of Hornets guys here. Vasily Micic and Trey Mann absolutely dominating right now. Of course, LaMelo Ball's done. Cody Martin is also done as well. So I think these guys just need to be rostered if they're not already. Miles McBride, I think with OG Anunoby coming back, it will hurt Miles McBride, but I still think he's putting up enough value there. So I think that he should be rostered already, but let's see if he does continue to play heavy minutes. He was allowed to continue some heavy minutes, but that was because in the last game, Josh Hart was ejected quite early. So it may taper off a little bit, but I think there's still some value with Miles McBride moving forward. Gary Trent Jr., if he continues to play, and I think just expect a couple of rest days for him. Toronto Raptors, again, they're tanking. They don't need to risk these guys moving forward. So I would expect that in week 24, Gary Trent does sit, but for now, he has to be rostered as well. All right, moving to the holds, and I think we've got Kayla back. Kayla, welcome back.
Thank you. Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties we carried through. I've taken the crowd through the ads now to the holds. So first up, Isaiah Hartenstein. He's still putting up some value and putting up some nice, solid value, particularly in category leagues. Mitchell Robinson has returned, but he hasn't dominated. He hasn't started ahead of Hartenstein, so I still think Hartenstein is a hold for now.
Yeah, I
Any
think
thoughts
so
on that?
too. I don't think Robinson is going to have a significant impact. I wasn't even expecting him to return during the regular season, really. But I think he's still going to be significantly limited. So that opens up more value for Hartenstein.
Yep. Dennis Schroeder, again with Brooklyn, quite a few injuries. I think he retained some value there. I don't think you have to bust a gut to go and grab him, particularly as the week shakes out. A lot of high volume days, but I think he can still be held.
And he's hard to find on your waivers too. But I think he's under 80% rostered, around that range. So he might still be available if you need a good streaming option.
Yep.
Or ad.
Kelly Olynyk, yeah, absolutely. Kelly Olynyk, I think he's still a solid hold. He did have that rest day. And again, like I said about Gary Trent, expect some rest days for some of those Raptors in the final week of the season as well. Kelly Olynyk could be one of those guys that does get some rest as well, or rest, I'll say take. But for now, he's a hold, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a couple more games just because of the rest, but he's one of the more reliable ads or streamers from the Raptors, and same with Trent.
Absolutely. There's no Jonte Porter there to take away those center minutes at this stage. But again, a silly season, the ultimate silly season. There could be some G League call-ups as well. So just keep an eye on those things. It's going to be quite insane in the last week. Trey Jones still putting up some nice assist numbers for the Spurs. So if you need those assists, I think he should still be held.
And I think he has increased value too, as we looked at before. They've had 2 key injuries on the Spurs, so that just opens up more opportunities, minutes usage for him.
It does, and we'll go through some of the streaming opportunities very, very shortly. But yeah, he's still solid, but we'll go through those other Spurs momentarily. TJ McConnell, particularly if Tyrese Halliburton does miss Sunday, I think he's a fantastic guy to stream, if not already have rostered. So he's our hold right now. And finally, Trace Jackson-Davis. He was a must-add guy for us last week, so it's no surprise that he's on our holds list this week. Any objections to that, Kayla?
Not at all. He's just been amazing too. And I think he's still under 60% rostered the last time I checked. So you might be able to still find him on the waivers.
Yeah, and I know it's very early to start thinking about next season, but perhaps a nice late round pick next season. But again, a lot of water to go under the bridge at this stage. But yeah, some nice dynasty value there. Moving to our watch list, but also our streamers as well. And like we said, we'll go through our schedule for next week very, very shortly. So some of these guys may not have value, but again, with a lot of rest and the shenanigans that may happen next week, some of these guys are going to have insane value. So just keep an eye on those updates throughout the week. But PJ Washington has looked fantastic. Luka missed a couple of games, or at least one game, and PJ went off in the last one.
Derek Lively is also out. He's also a drop. So that's opened up a lot more minutes, especially in the front court.
Yeah, and PJ Washington's definitely one to stream there. Andre Drummond, again, this is very particular. If you need those rebounds, he's putting up some good numbers right now, some high minutes. And this is something that we spoke about last week as well, Kayla, that Nikola Vucevic's minutes have been trending down as well. So they're not overplaying him. They're playing Andre Drummond a little bit more as well, which is great for his rebound numbers.
Yeah, especially if Kobe White sits out and Caruso too, who is also listed as questionable. That also opens up more opportunities for Drummond, and he's looked really good over the past few games.
Absolutely, yeah. Even though they don't play the direct position as those guys, that trickle-down effect, of course, with those minutes being dispersed elsewhere, I think that definitely helps Andre Drummond. Corey Kispert has taken advantage of some key guys missing from Washington, and as we said, with Kyle Kuzma, Tyus Jones, those guys that I would expect to probably see out for the rest of the season, if not quite a few games down the stretch. Corey Kispert is a beneficiary there.
Yeah, he's been a little bit inconsistent, but he still has that opportunity, so that makes him a worthwhile streamer.
Definitely. Grant Williams, particularly if Nick Richards continues to be out, which he is questionable, as we said, but Grant Williams has looked really nice as the starting center.
Yeah, but even when Nick Richards returns, he still looked pretty good. He's a little bit inconsistent, but for the most part, he's giving you better fantasy value than when he was on Dallas.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I've got Karis LeVert there. We didn't mention it directly, but I think Donovan Mitchell, again, there's going to be a lot of rest days for him, I believe. And if not, maybe even Darius Garland, some of the other starters for Cleveland. So I think Karis LeVert will benefit if that's the case in week 24.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most reliable streamers from the Cavs as well. He also has a little bit more value in points leagues, I think.
Definitely. I was just going to mention that too. We know that he does have his deficiencies in category leagues. So, yeah, definitely more a points guy. But there is still some value there in categories. Norman Powell, as we said, with Kawhi Leonard sitting, and I think the Clippers do have a back-to-back in week 24 as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw PG-13 or even James Harden sit a couple of those games as well.
Yeah, I think it's very likely. With Powell, too, I also think he's more of a points guy. He's going to get you some points, few rebounds, a couple threes. So, yeah, a little bit more value in points leagues.
Value in points leagues and very specific builds as well, or if you're looking for certain categories, free throws, threes, points, he could be your guy. Julian Champagny. So we spoke about the Spurs. Trey Jones is obviously a hold, but Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, Julian Champagny, and Devontae Graham played really well in the last one.
Yeah, no, they look really amazing. I think they're definitely worthwhile streamers right now.
Yeah, we knew what Devontae Graham could do when he was at the Hornets, and he's very streaky and he'll kill your field goal percentage, but he can have value elsewhere. So just keep an eye out for that. I think he's a really nice streamer if your schedule and your team allows for that. Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, I've got there just because, as we mentioned earlier, I would expect that quite a few guys from the Boston starting lineup or their top six will rest several games this week or this coming week.
Yeah, I think it's very likely that they're going to alternate rest days, if anything. So that just opens up value for these two.
Absolutely. Javonte Green, he's barely played this season, but he came back last game. And yes, there were some issues with Kobe White. Alex Caruso left a little bit early. So Javonte Green really stepped up, and he could be a really nice streamer.
Oh, yeah, he was great last game. I was looking at his log the other day, and in my fantasy league, points league, he got 55 fantasy points. I don't think that's sustainable, but I mean, if there's opportunities for him there, he's going to give you decent value.
Yeah, and he's just so explosive. He's great to watch, and I'm really surprised he hasn't played more this season. But yeah, just keep an eye out for that one as well. Tristan Vukcevic, so Washington Vukcevic, spelled differently as well, but he's stepped up as well. But having said that, Rashawn Holmes, I think, is questionable for the next one. Marvin Bagley is out, I believe, for the season, so there is some value for Tristan.
Yeah, there's definitely some minutes available there. Yeah, he's definitely a decent streaming option to consider. Also, look at that injury report, though, see if Holmes will play, because obviously if he doesn't, then it opens up his value.
Yeah, I think I really want to have a look at him as well. Coming over from Europe, he looks really nice. So I think he'll remain on their roster for next season. But yeah, there's some promise there. I mentioned Chimezie Metu, just with some question marks around Jalen Duren. Metsu has really stepped up, and it's been across the board. He's shot 9 of 9. I streamed him in yesterday, and it was fantastic to see. 9 and 9 from the field. I think he should grab 7 rebounds and 3 steals. Just those steal numbers from Metu has been unbelievable.
Oh, he's looked amazing over the past few games too. Yeah, he could be a league winner. I wouldn't be surprised.
He could be, but he does play on those high volume days as well. So just keep an eye out for that. But perhaps he does. With guys just going to be resting left, right, and center, he could be one of those guys. So just, again, keep an eye out for that. He is quite hot. But again, a lot of that is dependent on some of the absences or people that will be able to play for Detroit Pistons. Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jordan Goodwin, again, with Memphis just decimated by injuries and tanking and whatnot, these guys have really stepped up.
They look really good too. We really just got to look at the injury report. Of course, we talk about this every single episode. But yeah, just look at the injury report, see who's playing. I think the last game they only had like a handful of players available, so that really increases their value.
It does, and there's less concern about Jordan Goodwin not playing as well day to day, just because on the two-way as well, we were very hesitant about picking him up too early until we found out that he was active or at least starting as well. Just gave us that reassurance, but it's looking like he will play rest of the season, which is great. But again, I would still keep an eye out because anything can happen. And finally, I've got Rui Hachimura. We know his inadequacies around fantasy basketball, particularly in category leagues. But if AD and or LeBron do sit some games this week, I think Rui has been a nice stream as we've seen last week, and it could happen again next week.
Yeah, and I think it's very likely that the Lakers stars will at least miss a few games this week, so that really opens up some opportunities for him. And he's been pretty decent in points leagues as well.
He has been. Yeah, he's looked really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Now to our drops list. It's quite easy. This one's one of the easy ones that we've had to do, but any of the injured players that won't be coming back in the next couple of days, drop them. We spoke about it. Name value doesn't mean anything at this stage. You just need to win that championship, and it doesn't matter who you're dropping. They just need to be playing. Having said that, if they are day-to-day, just keep an eye again on those updates as well. And if you can stash them, you do so. But apart from that, I think you can bid farewell to some of those guys. And even if they got you into this position, thank you for your service. You move on to the next guy. Now, some of these other guys that are playing that are not injured, but they're just not worthy of being held. Dylan Brooks, and we'll just rush through these very quickly. Dylan Brooks, Aaron Neesmith, Precious Lachua, Malachi Flynn. Now, that's very interesting. Had a 50-pointer during the week, and that came out of nowhere. He was highly sought after, highly grabbed, and I saw this coming a mile away, and he's just pooped the bed ever since then. And yeah, we saw this coming, but yeah, very interesting to see Malachi Flynn, one of your boys from Toronto, really disappoint since that 50-point game.
No surprise at all, though. I mean, like, I know a lot of people would rush to get him, like, oh my God, 50 points, like, he's going to have another great game. But that's not how this works. This is a one-off kind of thing. He might give you a little bit of value depending on who's sitting out with the Pistons, but we're not going to see anything remotely close to that.
Yeah, I'd much rather have Marcus Sasser over Malachi Flynn,
Yes,
but that's just my personal preference, I think. Also, Flynn coming off the bench, very hard to predict at times as well. Spencer Dinwiddie, again, he's not a must-hold guy. Mitchell Robinson, back from injury, but playing inconsistent minutes, may sit some games as well in the lead-up to playoffs. He will be important for the Knicks in the real-life playoffs, but right now I don't think he has to be held.
Yeah, I agree with that. The minutes aren't there. Obviously, he's still recovering from injury. They want him healthy for the playoffs, so they're not going to risk anything to him.
Absolutely. Buddy Hield, we know that the superstars have come back, and perhaps that opens up a few more shooting opportunities, some open wide shots as well. But again, he's just not doing enough of those peripheral things that we want from a fantasy guy to be able to be held in a 12-teamer.
Yeah, and he's been really disappointing too. And we mentioned this before, how great that he looked when he was traded to the Sixers and how he was a must-roster guy. But things have just completely flipped, and he's been really disappointing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Yes, he was must roster. He was looking great those first couple of weeks post-trade deadline. But we're agile here. We're flexible, so we move on from Buddy Hield. And Keon Ellis, he's a drop. He could also be seen as a streamer, but again, he's had the opportunity. He hasn't done poorly, but he just hasn't given you that sustained value. And yes, he could be picked up as a nice stream for steals, but apart from that, I don't think he's giving you enough consistency to be able to trust him.
Yeah, 100%. He had a few really good games when some of the Kings went down with injuries, but in between, he was giving you duds. And even now, I think he's giving you more bad games than good, which doesn't really justify holding him.
Absolutely. And our droops list, so for those that are not initiated, droops are those that are trending towards a drop. But of course, going into our last week, there's not much time for trends and trend analysis. So our droops are anyone that's day-to-day. So just keep an eye on those guys. And if they are day-to-day and continuing to be day-to-day, they're obviously heading towards a very hard drop. So just keep an eye out for that. Mm-hmm. Looking at the schedule, I'll let you take over, Kayla. Week 24, our final week of the season in the regular season.
Yeah, it's crazy, but we're already here. It went by way too fast. But yeah, let's look at the week 24 schedule. So the good thing is that we have 24 teams playing 4 games and then only 6 teams playing 3 games. So just keep that in mind if you're doing a bulk stream from any of these 6 teams here. So we have Brooklyn, Cleveland, Indiana, the Lakers, Philly, and Washington. But the rest all have 4 games.
Yeah, which is a good segue into this streaming days as well. So this is the breakdown of the days and the games, Kayla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just note that on Monday, Saturday, there are no games. And Tuesday, Friday, Sunday are all full slate games. So we have 14 to 15 games here. So that means you might have to bench some guys. So you really have to consider your lineup. But also look at, if you're going to stream, aim for Wednesday and Thursday. Those are low volume days where you can help maximize your streams, your ads, because on the other days that we mentioned, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, it's going to be very hard for you to stream. Of course, depending on injuries, as we mentioned before, it's silly season. We're probably going to have some questionable tags, so just keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that as well. Just particularly on Sunday, the last day of the regular
Yeah.
season, I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunity for streaming. So my suggestion would be to hold your ads, hold your transactions as much as possible. Obviously, utilize those back-to-backs and those pseudo back-to-backs as well. But Sundays, there could be someone popping out with, who was it? Trying to think of some examples, but there could be some random person coming out with another 40-point game or a 50-point game. So just keep an eye out for that. But that's very, very interesting. I can't wait to see that. Hopefully, it doesn't impact my own team that's going into the second week of the grand final matchup as well. But yeah, that'll be interesting to
Hopefully
watch.
not. Good luck with
Yeah,
that.
hopefully not. Yes, thank you very much. And finally, our back-to-backs as well in week 24. Like we said, there's no games on Monday and Saturday. But Sunday, I'll let you take this, Kayla. You're the expert here.
The schedules, yeah, I'm definitely an expert. So for Sunday, we have all teams except for Atlanta, Denver, Detroit, Memphis have a back-to-back. So watch out for that. That's Tuesday. Tuesday, Wednesday, we have a couple other teams there as well. I won't go through them all, but they're listed here. Wednesday, Thursday, we mentioned 0 back-to-backs. Thursday, Friday, we also have a couple options. And then Friday, Sunday, we have all teams. As we mentioned, there is no games on Saturday, but just watch out for that. You can still get a back-to-back game if you stream someone on the Friday.
Absolutely. And there's going to be some teams there that will have the multiple back-to-backs as well, just with that, with those games on Monday and Saturday. There's going to be opportunities to stream them through. But yes, again, as always, just keep an eye out for injury updates and those that will be questionable. All right, Kayla, thank you very much.
That
Do
is
you have any
all.
final words? That's a wrap for the regular season for us anyway.
Mhm.
Any final words?
Yeah, honestly, the last thing, just good luck and make sure to monitor the injury report. I think that's the most important thing if you want to maximize streaming. We all know it's silly season. These things are going to happen. So just make sure to stay on top of that, look at the injury report, see who's available, and then make adjustments as needed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just keep an eye on those depth charts as well and just see who could be starting as well. So it's really, really important to stay up to date because it could make or break your season. It could be the difference between first and second in terms of your league and championship. So thank you, Kayla. We will have some more episodes coming up. We'll do a review of the entire season as well in the next few weeks. A lot more content, so stick with us. But thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. And until next time, see ya.
See ya.